After the company dinner, I thought the night was over. My husband left with a colleague, and his boss offered me a ride home, just a polite gesture, nothing more. But what happened in that car stunned me. A single question he asked cut deeper than I expected, forcing me to face truths I had been avoiding for years. That ride wasn't just about getting home. It became the moment that changed how I saw myself, my marriage, and everything in between. Hi everyone, I'm Jessica, the storyteller on the Adult Women's Tales channel. Here, I'll share stories about love, conflicts, betrayal, and infidelity within families. These stories offer a deep look into relationships and the challenges families face. Stay tuned and explore with me. If you love emotional stories and want to uncover the hidden secrets in families, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our videos. I never thought my evening would conclude in such a way. After the company dinner, my husband's boss kindly offered me a ride home, something straightforward and courteous. However, the events that unfolded during the journey left me in disbelief, making me reevaluate everything I believed about myself. And that guy. Before we dive in, I'm curious, where are you tuning in from? Share your city in the comments, and let's find out how far this story goes. Let me tell you the real story. The night radiated a gentle, luminous vibe that can only be felt after a beautifully refined evening. The company dinner for my husband Daniel took place at a fancy restaurant in the downtown area. You understand the type: lighting for dining, lavish wine selections, and hushed dialogues that resonated softly under the melody of clinking glasses. I slipped into a dark burgundy dress, a piece I hadn't touched in years, but it served me perfectly. It had been some time since I experienced that level of attention. I was almost 60, but that evening I sensed living. Daniel indulged a bit too much, as was his custom at these gatherings, and found himself catching a ride with a junior associate who resided close by. He pressed his lips to my cheek before departing and murmured, "Matteo will take you home. He already offered." I glanced over and spotted Matteo, Daniel's boss, standing by the entrance, jacket slung over one arm, as calm and composed as ever. Matteo was a few years older than Daniel, yet somehow appeared younger. He possessed a calm assurance that simply can't be learned. The silver in his hair was not a defect. It was a treasure, as if each line on his face had been gained, not lamented. Our conversation at the dinner table had been quite brief. Charming chuckles, a knowing glance exchanged during an uncomfortable toast, and that fleeting instant when I noticed his eyes resting on me a heartbeat longer than necessary. As we strolled to his car, the crisp air embraced my shoulders. Matteo observed and softly draped his jacket over me. The aroma was subtly reminiscent of cedar wood, mingled with an unidentifiable scent. I expressed my gratitude softly. He opened the car door for me, a classic gesture that unexpectedly quickened my heartbeat. The journey in the car began as expected. Soft jazz floated gently from the radio, while the city lights danced momentarily on the windshield. We discussed the dinner, the company, and how Daniel has been lately. However, the dialogue took a different turn. "You looked stunning tonight, Jessica," Matteo remarked, keeping his gaze fixed on the road ahead. His voice remained calm, yet an unspoken tension lingered in the atmosphere, a sensation that resonated beyond mere sound. I hesitated, uncertain if it had been a figment of my imagination. I expressed my gratitude with caution. "How kind of you." Quietness ensued. Initially cozy, but later became overly silent. There was a sense of anticipation, as if a question was on the verge of being posed. "I've often thought," he remarked thoughtfully, "how a person like you found themselves with someone like Daniel." I blinked, taken by surprise. "Could you clarify what you mean by that?" He looked at me for a moment, then focused back on the road. Please don't misunderstand. Your presence is truly appreciated and your thoughtfulness stands out. You and Daniel share a certain warmth. He's a decent guy, yet he often appears oblivious to what's right in front of him. I was at a loss for words. My fingers curled tightly into my lap. My heart raced now, not out of fear, but because his words seemed to weave through the gaps I hadn't noticed before. We came to a halt at a red light. He glanced my way, truly glanced. Has anyone mentioned that to you recently? That you deserve to be seen? My breath was taken away. I tilted my head a bit, uncertain about the level of honesty I should express. It hasn't been a while. The light changed to green, yet he remained still for a moment. He leaned back, let out a breath, and gently asked, "Would you mind if we took a longer route home?" "Only a little. I could use some company, and I have a feeling you might as well." I ought to have declined. I really should have pushed for him to take me directly home. However, there was something in his tone, neither forceful nor conceited, simply welcoming, that prompted me to agree instead. "All right," I replied, barely above a whisper. As he rounded the corner, the city faded from view, giving way to the gentler contours of suburban roads. We traveled quietly for a few moments, but the silence had lost its discomfort. It seemed as though a subtle connection was developing between us. "You can choose not to respond," he remarked after a moment. "So, Jessica, are you feeling happy?" I gazed out the window. I noticed my reflection in the glass, the silhouette of a woman who had devoted years to caring for others, organizing schedules, and suppressing her own desires. I took a deep breath. "I honestly don't know," I replied. "I believe I've ceased to ponder that." Matteo nodded slowly, as if he grasped more than he ought to have. He parked the car in front of a serene park, one of those quaint neighborhood spots adorned with aged trees and benches illuminated by street lamps. We stayed in. He casually turned to face me, one hand on the steering wheel and the other resting on his knee. "I've experienced what you're feeling," he said, merely going through the motions, observing life from afar. "It feels quite isolating, doesn't it, even in the company of others?" That's when I sensed it. Not longing precisely, not at this moment, but a bond, something genuine, something unsaid. "I never imagined anyone noticed that side of me," I said, my voice trembling a bit. He smiled softly, his eyes warm. "At times, it only requires a single individual who takes action." We lingered beneath the soft orange light of the street lamp, two souls who never intended to feel this way, who hadn't mapped out any of it, yet could no longer deny the truth. He never laid a finger on me. He didn't even try to take my hand. Yet, a change had occurred that was irreversible. And I realized, as he finally restarted the car to drive me home, that this night wasn't the conclusion of anything. This is merely the start. The drive from the park to my house was serene, yet comfortable. There was a shift in our relationship. It was understated. Nothing dramatic occurred, yet it seemed we had crossed an unseen boundary that was irreversible. The engine's hum filled the silence, and I found comfort in it. The quiet was essential for my thoughts to flow. My heart has been racing ever since Matteo inquired about my happiness. Honestly, it hadn't crossed my mind in ages. Not in a serious way. Life had simply turned into a flow. It's not terrible, just expected. Dinner is set for 7, the update at 9. Daniel and I were partners. Yet that spark, that feeling of being noticed and desired, had quietly diminished like the final glow of an extended twilight. As Matteo arrived in front of my house, he hesitated to park immediately. He eased his pace and surveyed the driveway, then cast a look in my direction. "Your lights are off," he said gently. I took a look as well. The dwelling was shrouded in darkness. It was no shock to me that Daniel still hadn't arrived home. I understood the way those evenings unfolded. Drinks evolved into late-night discussions, and those morphed into justifications. Matteo seemed as though he had more to express, but held back. "I can stay with you," he suggested, his tone calm and steady, "just until he returns." I ought to have declined. I understood how that could appear. Yet, the idea of stepping inside that cold, silent house by myself weighed more on me than I cared to acknowledge. I paused, allowing him to grasp that I preferred not to be by myself. "I would appreciate that," I mentioned. He pulled up to the curb and switched off the engine. For a brief instant, we remained still, shoulder to shoulder in the shadows. The car's interior was shrouded in shadows, illuminated solely by the gentle glow of the streetlight beyond. The world seemed to stand still just for us, as if time were granting us room to breathe. Matteo expressed concern, saying he hoped he hadn't overstepped earlier. I didn't mean to intervene. It's difficult to remain silent when I witness someone in pain. "I didn't," I responded. "Your honesty was evident, and that signified more than you understand." He gazed in my direction, truly gazed, not at this stage in my life, not with the creases that tell the story of my past. He gazed at me as if I were complete. I felt like a woman with untold stories waiting to be written. "Jessica," he finally spoke after a lengthy silence, "may I ask you something intimate?" I offered a slight nod. "Do you ever long for the feeling of being touched, not only in a physical sense, but also on an emotional level, being embraced in a manner that conveys your significance?" His question struck a chord within me that I didn't realize was still sensitive. I sensed it deep within, a tightness in my chest and a pressure in my throat. I looked at him, my eyes filled, not with sorrow, but with the pain of understanding. I whispered all the time. I simply stopped acknowledging it to myself. A moment of silence lingered between us. It was quite bearable. It was dense with comprehension. He seemed to be contemplating something, careful in his thoughts. "Consider it. I'm not trying to pressure you into anything," he said softly. "If I were your husband, I would always ensure you went to bed knowing just how remarkable you truly are." I took my time to respond. I was unable to. His words lingered in the air, not as a weight, but in the way truth resonates when it is finally voiced. "I once believed that needing that was a sign of weakness," I remarked. "But now I wonder if I've been resilient for too long." He offered me a gentle, nearly sorrowful smile. Strength doesn't equate to a lack of love. We lingered in that moment, two souls with a history, gazing into a stillness brimming with emotions we were meant to suppress, words we were meant to hold back. I wished for the moment to last forever, yet I also felt the urge to embrace it fully. I finally did something I haven't done in years. I extended my hand carefully and rested it softly on his. It was a subtle act, hardly more than a gentle caress, yet it felt like a threshold being crossed. He remained steady and unyielding. He just lifted his palm and grasped my hand as if it was significant. That was all there was. There was no kiss between us. That night, we stayed within our limits. As he walked me to the door and stood there until I turned the key in the lock, I experienced a sense of being truly seen that I hadn't felt in years. As I entered and rested against the door, my heart brimming with unexpressed emotions, I recognized that a change had occurred within me. It had nothing to do with Matteo, not completely. It revolved around me, about acknowledging that I remained a woman with emotions, with desires, with the right to be more than merely someone's wife in the shadows of my own existence. Perhaps, just perhaps, that night marked the start of my journey to reclaim it. I was awake all night. I lay in bed, gazing up at the ceiling, enveloped in a thick, quiet darkness, interrupted only by the soft hum of the fridge below and the sporadic sound of a car passing by outside. Daniel arrived home long after 2 in the morning. I could hear him struggling with his keys, the gradual creak of the front door, followed by the unmistakable noise of him awkwardly kicking off his shoes, a clear sign of having had one too many drinks. He stayed downstairs. The couch cushions moved, a soft sigh escaped, and then there was quiet. I stayed in bed. The following morning, the house reeked of old alcohol, and something charred wafted from the kitchen. It seems he attempted to make toast, but didn't succeed. I descended in my robe, hair pulled back and no makeup on my face. Daniel hardly lifted his gaze from the paper. "Hey," he whispered. "I apologize for what happened last night. That kid Steve suggested tequila. You understand how that works?" I offered him a brief smile and gave a nod. "Absolutely, I'm aware." He didn't inquire about my journey home, didn't bring up Mateo, didn't acknowledge the silence between us expanding more than it typically does. In the days that followed, I simply went through the motions. I tidied up. I prepared a meal. I grinned when it was necessary. Yet, within me, I remained in Mateo's car, his voice echoing in my mind, the heaviness of his question still pressing down on me. "Do you ever long for the feeling of being touched?" I did. Indeed, I did. It was never just about the physical aspect. It was about recognition, connection, and regaining significance. On Thursday, I received a message. "Hey Mateo, how about grabbing lunch together? Just enjoying the company? No pressure at all." My stomach did a little dance. I gazed at the message for an extended period before finally responding. "Who, me? Where is it?" He picked a cozy little cafe hidden away on a side street, the sort of spot with just 6 tables, fresh baked bread, and a waitress who recognized him instantly. As I entered, he rose to his feet right away. He appeared composed, yet I noticed it. That brief spark in his eyes, the one that indicated this was more than just lunch. "You look beautiful," he said, and this time I didn't disagree. I experienced a sense of beauty, subtle makeup, a blouse I hadn't donned in ages, delicate earrings that shimmered softly in the light. Something within me was stirring to life. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, regarding literature, the shifting seasons, and the altered perception of time these days. He shared that he lost his wife 8 years ago. Cancer. He hasn't been in a serious relationship since then. I shared with him the early days with Daniel, filled with laughter, and how, amidst mortgages, aging parents, and daily routines, that laughter gradually faded into silence. He paid attention, truly attentive. At times, he remarked softly, "I ponder whether we confuse comfort with love. We think that if we're not experiencing pain, then we must be content." His words lingered in my mind, profound. Is it possible for us to discover genuine connection even now? I inquired. Mateo gazed at me with a conviction that stirred a desire to have faith once more. He stated that he doesn't believe connection is influenced by age. It seems to anticipate sincerity. That's it. We lingered for another hour, sipping coffee well after our plates had been cleared. No unwelcome touches, no secretive looks, simply cozy. Connection in the softest, most genuine manner. However, as he escorted me to my car, a shift occurred. He opened the door for me, just as he had done previously. I looked over to express my gratitude to him. In that instant, our gazes met. I'm not sure who made the first move. It seems like it was a shared experience for both of us. Then, out of nowhere, our foreheads met, softly, with uncertainty. His hand lingered just above my elbow, while mine traced the contours of his face. We did not share a kiss. Yet, it all seemed to embody the essence of a new start. As I withdrew, my breath hitched in my throat. I noticed the question reflected in his gaze. "Jessica," he murmured softly, "I would never want to do anything that would make you feel uneasy. However, I won't deceive you either. I truly care about you, profoundly, and if there comes a time when you seek something beyond just words, know that I will be here." My throat constricted. I tried to speak, but silence filled the air. I gave a single nod. While I was driving home, the reality of the situation began to settle in. I didn't have feelings for Matteo, not at this moment. Yet I was awakening once more, experiencing emotions once more, and honestly, a part of me was reluctant to release that. As I entered the house, there was Daniel on the couch, just like usual. The television hums softly in the background, with a beer halfway full in my grasp. He looked at me briefly before returning his gaze to the screen. "You were gone for a while," he remarked. "I had lunch with a friend," I said, placing my keys down. He never inquired about the identity. He didn't bother to lower the volume at all. I remained in place, observing him, and came to a quietly heartbreaking realization. I could vanish for hours, and he wouldn't even realize. Matteo observed. In that moment, a decision lay before me, a gradual drift through the remaining days of my life, or a daunting leap into the unfamiliar, into the genuine. And deep inside, I was aware of the direction I was beginning to favor. The following days drifted by in a blur of subtle insights. It's odd how once you begin to experience emotions again, you can't go back to being numb. It's as if a light has illuminated a space you never knew was shadowed. Everything appeared more vivid now. The quietness between Daniel and me was more pronounced. The lack of warmth is more apparent. The routines we adhered to seemed more like acceptance than solace. One evening we were having dinner. Charred chicken, fluffy rice, vibrant steamed veggies. I had prepared that meal countless times before. Daniel hardly lifted his gaze from his food. I mentioned that I would be visiting my sister next weekend, gauging the reaction. He gave a nod. "Give her my regards. That was the end. I really miss you." "No. Would you like me to come?" Not a single reason given. I did not lie. I truly intended to visit my sister, just for one night. Following that, I still had some uncertainty. Matteo never requested anything. He didn't propose anything beyond what we had already discussed. A sincere dialogue, tender regard, and a reminder of something I had overlooked how essential it was: emotional engagement. On Friday morning, I gathered a small bag. I informed Daniel that I would return on Sunday. He hardly replied, just muttered something about a game on TV and asked if we had enough beer. As I drove away, an unusual sensation washed over me. Not blame, not at this moment, but understanding. For so long, I focused on meeting everyone else's needs and maintaining order that I lost sight of how to express my own needs. This is what I desired. I did not reach out to Matteo. I kept my visit a secret from him. I just took a drive. Upon my arrival at the quaint town near the city where my sister resided, I spent that initial night with her. We enjoyed some wine, engaged in conversation, and I found myself laughing, genuinely laughed, for the first time in weeks. She peered at me from behind her glass and remarked, "You seem different, Jess. Brighter. What's happening?" I simply smiled and replied, "I'm recalling my true self." The following afternoon, I made my way back to the city, leisurely navigating the winding roads through neighborhoods I hadn't seen in years. At about 5, I ended up close to that familiar tranquil cafe. I never intended to be present, yet my hands guided the vehicle as if my heart was already aware of the destination. Matteo's vehicle was not parked out front. I nearly changed my mind, nearly made it home. Yet something held me back. I made my exit. Strolled over to the little park just across the street, the one featuring the weathered bench beneath the tree. And then, as if destiny was tracing my path, I saw him. He sat there, engrossed in his reading. He gazed upward. His expression remained unchanged, devoid of surprise. In contrast, it became gentler, as if he had been anticipating this moment. I approached him at a leisurely pace. My chest felt constricted, my heart uncertain, yet my feet continued to move. "I didn't expect to see you," he said softly, closing his book. "I had no intention of coming. He remained upright and unwavering. However, you did. I gave a nod. I'm not here to offer assurances I won't be able to fulfill. I arrived prepared for what I can handle. I'm aware, he mentioned. I wouldn't request that of you. We faced one another. A gentle breeze brushed a strand of my hair against my cheek. He reached up gradually and tucked it behind my ear. His fingers stayed for a moment, allowing me to sense the warmth. Jessica, he murmured, his tone calm and unwavering. No matter what unfolds from here on out, remember this. I can see you, not in the role of a spouse, not like someone's history. As a woman, I am worthy of joy, tenderness, and being chosen each and every day. My throat constricted. I whispered that I'm no longer accustomed to being selected. Let this mark the first time in quite a while, he stated. Where do you select yourself? In that gentle glow of twilight, I sensed another change take place. Not an intense outburst of feelings, not an impulsive, careless jump, simply a serene, stable reality. I moved ahead, eliminated the distance that separated us, not due to an attempt to flee from anything, yet I was finally moving towards something that seemed genuine. He extended his hand towards mine. This time, I acted without hesitation. We took a seat together on the bench, minimal contact. There's no requirement to. The intimacy was sufficient. The atmosphere surrounding us was charged with unspoken words, yet also brimming with tranquility. We chatted for hours, concerning all matters, our histories. We express our regrets, our aspirations, little ones, silent individuals. He never applied any pressure. I never assumed at any point. He was merely there, and that, above all else, completed me. As he escorted me to my car, I faced him. I'm unsure about what happens next, I mentioned. I require more time. I still require some time to determine what I truly desire. Matteo grinned. I'm here to stay, Jessica. Feel free to take as long as you require. I will be present, not holding back, simply open. I made my way home late that night. Once more, the house fell into silence. Daniel lay dozing on the couch. The television remains powered on. I switched it off and covered him with a blanket and paused for a moment, gazing down at the man I had once cherished so profoundly. Perhaps a part of me still did. However, I realized that love encompasses more than just loyalty or duration. It's all about focus, existence, selection. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first. That night, as I rested in bed by myself, I didn't feel sorrowful. I felt no guilt. I experienced something truly invaluable, living. In the gentle stillness of my room, a smile crept across my face. This is only the start. That's it for today's story. If you found it moving, don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.